Good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us today. One of the biggest problems facing Michigan is the high cost of prescription drugs. This impacts everyone from our seniors to those with pre-existing conditions in all of our families across the state. Young, old, rich, poor, everyone at some point gets sick, and many of those illnesses require important and sometimes life-saving medication. Michigan has the 5th highest drug prices in the nation. Not only are the high costs of prescription drugs a daily problem for many, but so are the price hikes and spikes that we see that sometimes target people with specific conditions. It's outrageous that a company making billions in profits was able to charge $500 for the EpiPen when it only cost $30 to make. We all know the pharma bro, Martin Shkreli, who jacked up prices on an HIV drug over 5,000%. Just because he could. People deserve access to life-saving medications without being gouged by these types of companies. People deserve these medications. So together, House Democrats and Senate Democrats aren't waiting for Washington, D.C. to act, though they should act, and they should have acted by now. We're looking at a variety of bills that we'll outline here today. We've already introduced our Health Care Bill of Rights, which seeks to protect health care access and make sure that coverage is affordable for Michigan families, no matter what happens on the federal level. And now we have a plan to fight prescription drug spikes right here in Michigan. Under the House and Senate plan, Democrats in Michigan would establish a prescription drug consumer protection board to protect people in our state by cracking down on massive prescription drug price spikes. This board will be primarily composed of consumer advocates rather than big pharmaceutical companies. Drug manufacturers would have to submit to this board for approval any price increases over 10% for 1 year or 30% over a period of 5 years. This is similar to what natural gas companies have to do before going before the Public Service Commission. And so the fact that we would require a gas company to do that to protect our citizens, and the fact that we don't do that for drug companies and our citizens who require these medications is beyond me. House and Senate Democrats want to stop this price gouging once and for all. The second aspect of these bills would also strengthen the Michigan Consumer Protection Act, which is obviously already in place. We want to make sure that if there are provisions that are found by this board, that it does require that our Attorney General take action and do an investigation. Michiganders have a right to know the price of their medication and why it increased, and this legislation would not only hold manufacturers accountable, it would increase transparency for drug prices. So if the prices go up, you'll know why. We now know that prescription drugs are out of control in Michigan, and our plan is to aim at a fair and equitable way of protecting Michigan residents across our state. I'd like to now introduce to you Garrett Clenard, who will speak to you a little bit about his experience with prescription drugs. Garrett?
Hi, thank you. My name is Garrett Clenard, and I'm a resident here in Lansing, former neighbor Sonarman. Like many older Americans, I make do on a modest income, doing my best to pay my bills and keep my health insurance. And I'm grateful that I can do that right now, but it's just barely. What I can't afford are my prescription drugs. About 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with crystal pyrophosphate deposition disease, or CPPD. That's calcium crystals, little sharp, jagged calcium crystals that collect in your joints, cause excruciating pain, and shred the soft tissue. I've had 2 operations on my knees, and I was prescribed by my doctor to prevent that buildup of those crystals again and to manage that excruciating pain. $28 a month 10 years ago. Now it's just over $200. Nothing's changed with the drugs, except now I can't afford them. So I can't get that treatment. And those crystals will continue to collect and shred me until I am completely disabled, unable to walk at all. And then it starts to go to other places like your hand, your shoulders, your ankles. And it's just the most horrifying pain I've ever felt in my life. And the $200 a month increase from 28 may not seem like a lot for a CEO of a drug company, increasing the profits for his shareholders and everything, but it's priced me out of the market, and I can't get that treatment and those drugs. And that's just a really bad deal. So I'm thankful and commend the Democratic legislatures of Michigan for doing what is right, cracking down on these prescription drug companies that take advantage of people just because they can. Got to get control of these prices. I want to keep my house. I want to be able to feed myself and keep the utilities, pay my taxes, but I also want to stay healthy, and I can't do all of them at the same time under these present conditions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Garrett. Boy, that's no way to treat our seniors or our veterans. Sky-high drug prices are something that impact many people all across the state. We've heard this from constituents throughout the state, from Grand Rapids to Detroit, from Lansing to Marquette. Almost 60% of American adults are taking some prescription drug now. The American Medical Association reports that drug prices increased 10% on average in 2016, which well outpaced inflation and wage growth. But some drugs have skyrocketed as much as 5,500% with no justification, as Leader Singh mentioned. Unless immediate action is taken, drug prices are estimated to rise another 12% this year. This is the third straight year of double-digit price increases. That's why we're addressing this now. For too long, state government has refused to help the people in our state who have to choose between paying their bills or their taxes or buying the medicine that they need. Michigan House and Senate Democrats have a plan to take on price gouging and stop these exorbitant spikes in prices. As Leader Singh talked about, our legislation would create a prescription drug consumer protection board. Drug manufacturers would be required to notify this board before they raise prices on important and life-saving medications. If a drug company fails or refuses to submit justification for price spikes over 10%, it would face a $100,000 per day fine per drug until it complies. And that may sound like a lot, but these are companies with tremendous profits, and they deserve more than a slap on the wrist or something that they could eat as the cost of business when they hurt the people of Michigan. If the price hike is unjustified, the board would request an investigation from the Attorney General to determine if sufficient probable cause exists to take legal action against the pharmaceutical company and sue for damages, which would then go back to consumers. The board would consist of 13 members, composed primarily of members of consumer advocacy groups, but will also include drug purchasers and state department heads. Members would be appointed by the governor with input from legislative leaders in both chambers and from both parties. Seeing people spend hundreds and even thousands of dollars on life-saving medications like EpiPens, it's unacceptable. We need to be doing all we can to fix this broken part of our healthcare system and help our constituents by stopping these cost spikes. This should be a common sense bipartisan effort. I hope the Republicans will join us in this effort to protect Michiganders from unscrupulous price spikes on medicine that they need just to survive. Passing this plan will make a real difference in the lives of millions of our constituents, and that's what the people elected us to do. Now I'd like to welcome Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Representative Shore. Skyrocketing drug prices are something that is on everyone's mind. Millions of people in Michigan take medicine, often to control asthma, high blood pressure, and diabetes. This impacts just about everyone that we represent, from children to seniors. When you have a certain medication prices that are spiking so high, so quickly, this is a problem. The Democratic plan will make sure that manufacturers think twice before raising their prices in Michigan and causing our families hardships. We're sending a clear message that we're on the side of the consumers. Our legislation will strengthen the Michigan Consumer Protection Act. We are also introducing legislation to increase transparency on drug price increases. This goal is to discourage drug manufacturers from raising prices on prescription medications that the people of Michigan desperately need. And our plan will require pharmaceutical companies to show how prescription costs are determined and where the money is spent. Several states, such as Vermont, have enacted similar legislation, and in several states, similar legislation has been introduced as well. It's been said many times today, but it's worth repeating. Prescription drug prices in Michigan are out of control. As has been said, we have the 5th highest drug prices in our country, and costs are expected to rise. For our seniors, people with pre-existing conditions, and families across the state, price gouging presents a crisis of life and death. No one should have to choose between paying their mortgage and buying medicine to treat their cancer or other pre-existing conditions. Parents shouldn't have to debate whether they're paying their heating bill or purchasing a $500 EpiPen for their child. We've been hearing all year from the people of Michigan who are worried about health and prescription drug prices are losing their coverage altogether. The House and Senate Democrats are not going to wait any longer for someone to step up and help the residents of our state. We are not afraid to be in the front lines of this fight, and we are committed to see that our health care Bill of Rights is passed and passed swiftly. Our plan is simple, but it will be effective in stopping prescription drug price spikes in Michigan. We are on the side of consumers. With this plan, the law will finally be as well. Every person in Michigan deserves high-quality, affordable health care coverage. If we want to live in a world where this is possible, we must tackle prescription drug price spikes. We look forward to the leaders in Michigan legislature taking up our plan and standing with the people of Michigan who are tired of losing this uphill battle.